Every reaction you show teaches people how to treat you. The moment you react emotionally, you surrender leverage. Those who stay unreadable decide outcomes while others reveal weakness. Every human reaction is information, not opinion, not expression. Information. When you react too quickly, too emotionally, or too loudly, you expose your internal hierarchy. You reveal what matters to you, what unsettles you, what you fear losing. And once that information is visible, it can be used against you. Most people believe reactions are harmless. They think reacting is being real, being honest, or standing up for yourself. In reality, uncontrolled reactions are confessions of weakness. They announce where your emotional pressure points are located. Powerful individuals understand a simple rule: the first person to react loses positional advantage. Why? Because reaction is always defensive. Even anger is defensive. Even outrage is defensive. It means something touched you before you had time to choose your response. And the one who touches you first controls the interaction. This is why manipulation works so well on reactive people. A single insult, a dismissive tone, a subtle provocation, and they explode, over-explain, justify themselves, or seek validation. The manipulator doesn't need strength. They only need access to your reactions. Machiavellian power is not built on force. It is built on emotional restraint. Consider this. If someone insults you and you immediately respond, they now know. You care about their opinion. You are emotionally reachable. You can be provoked on demand. Silence, on the other hand, creates uncertainty. Uncertainty destabilizes the aggressor. They are left guessing: did it land? Did I miscalculate? Am I irrelevant? Silence reverses pressure. Most people misunderstand this and assume silence equals submission. That belief comes from insecurity. In reality, silence is often a refusal to engage on inferior terms. It says, you do not decide when I react. This is why calm individuals dominate chaotic environments. They don't absorb emotional noise. They let others expose themselves. Watch any negotiation, confrontation, or power struggle carefully. The person who speaks less, reacts slower, and maintains composure controls the pace. Pace control is dominance. Whoever sets the tempo dictates outcomes. Reactions are especially dangerous because they feel justified. Anger feels righteous. Defensiveness feels logical. Emotional expression feels human. But power is not human in that way. Power is selective, strategic, deliberate. You are not rewarded for how strongly you feel. You are rewarded for how well you conceal. This does not mean suppressing emotion until it leaks out later. That creates volatility. Control means delaying reaction long enough to choose the most advantageous response, or none at all. Here is the uncomfortable truth: people respect emotional control more than emotional honesty. A person who cannot be rattled appears internally sovereign. Others adjust around them. They speak more carefully. They test less. They assume depth and authority even if none is explicitly displayed. This is how reputations are formed without words. Your reactions today are training people how to treat you tomorrow. If you react emotionally to disrespect, you invite more of it. If you react defensively to criticism, you signal insecurity. If you react eagerly to approval, you reveal dependence. Control changes this dynamic completely. When reactions are removed, others are forced to operate blindly. They no longer know which lever moves you. And when no lever is visible, manipulation collapses. This chapter establishes the foundation: reaction is exposure, control is concealment. Until you master this, every other strategy is compromised. Most people react fast because they believe speed signals strength. Quick replies feel decisive. Immediate responses feel confident. Instant reactions feel powerful. They are wrong. Speed in social and psychological dynamics usually indicates lack of control. It means the stimulus arrived before the mind stabilized. What looks like confidence is often panic wearing a mask. Powerful individuals are slow by design. They pause not because they are confused, but because they are choosing. Every pause forces the other side to fill the silence. And when people fill silence, they reveal motives, insecurities, and intentions. Speed benefits the instigator, not the responder. When someone pushes you to react quickly, they are attempting to lock you into their frame. They want to control timing because timing controls leverage. This is why interrogations, arguments, and manipulative conversations are rushed. Urgency weakens judgment. Think about how often pressure phrases appear. Answer now. Say something. So what do you think? Why are you quiet? These are not innocent questions. They are attempts to extract information before you are ready to give it. A delayed response reverses this extraction. When you slow down, three things happen simultaneously. First, emotional intensity dissipates. Emotion peaks fast and collapses fast. Delay robs emotion of momentum. By the time you respond, you are no longer reacting. You are acting. Second, perception shifts. Others interpret slowness as confidence. Even when it is simply discipline, humans subconsciously associate calm pacing with authority. Leaders speak slower. Judges pause before verdicts. Commanders issue measured orders. Speed is for subordinates. Tempo belongs to those at the top. Third, pressure transfers. The moment you do not react immediately, the other person becomes uncertain. They start wondering, did I miscalculate? Am I being ignored? Am I losing control of this interaction? Uncertainty is destabilizing, and destabilized people overplay their hand. This is why silence often provokes escalation. When someone realizes they cannot control your reaction speed, they increase intensity, they talk more, push harder, reveal frustration. Every extra move exposes them further. Meanwhile, you gain clarity. Machiavellian strategy treats time as a weapon. Whoever controls timing controls interpretation. A delayed response can turn an insult into irrelevance. It can turn a provocation into embarrassment. It can turn an attack into self-exposure. Most people fear delay because they fear appearing weak. In truth, they fear losing approval. Silence feels risky to those addicted to validation. They rush to fill space so they are not misunderstood. But misunderstanding is not dangerous. Exposure is. When you respond instantly, you give others a clean read on you. When you delay, you force them to guess. And guessing always favors the one being guessed about. This does not mean you are slow in all situations. Strategic slowness is selective. You are fast with logistics, execution, and preparation. You are slow with emotion, judgment, and commitment. Never confuse hesitation with restraint. Hesitation is fear. Restraint is control. The key difference is intent. You delay not because you are unsure, but because you refuse to be rushed into revealing yourself. You allow others to show their cards first. You let momentum expose intention. Over time, this changes how people interact with you. They stop demanding instant answers. They phrase things more carefully. They anticipate resistance. They adjust. You haven't said anything, yet you've shifted the balance. This chapter's principle is simple but brutal. Speed makes you readable. Slowness makes you dangerous. Until you control your pace, you are always playing on someone else's timing. Modern culture praises emotional openness. Be expressive, Say how you feel. Don't bottle things up. This advice is useful for healing, but disastrous for power. In competitive environments, emotional transparency is not authenticity, it is leakage. Every visible emotion becomes data. Every revealed feeling becomes leverage. Those who understand control treat emotion the same way generals treat troop movements. Nothing is visible unless it serves a purpose. The problem is not having emotions. The problem is letting emotions announce themselves. Anger tells others where you feel disrespected. Excitement tells them what you want. Sadness tells them what hurts you. Defensiveness tells them where you feel inferior. Once these signals are visible, manipulation becomes effortless. This is why skilled operators provoke emotion before making requests. They soften you with validation, agitate you with criticism, or confuse you with mixed signals, all to destabilize your internal state. A destabilized person gives away more than they intend. Emotion clouds judgment, but more importantly, it narrows perspective. When emotional, you stop thinking in outcomes and start thinking in relief. You want the feeling to stop, not the situation to improve. That's when mistakes happen. Controlled individuals do the opposite. They feel emotion fully, but privately. Outwardly, they remain neutral. This creates a psychological asymmetry. Others are exposed, while they are concealed. This asymmetry is power. People trust those who appear emotionally steady. They assume depth, wisdom, and strength even when none is explicitly shown. Calmness is interpreted as competence. Emotional volatility is interpreted as instability. This is why leaders are expected to remain composed during crisis. Not because they feel less fear, but because fear displayed spreads chaos. The same rule applies socially. When you show emotion too easily, people stop treating you as an authority and start treating you as a variable. Another dangerous myth is that hiding emotion makes you cold or inhuman. In reality, it makes you predictable only to yourself. Others cannot map your reactions. They cannot anticipate your moves. They cannot easily pull strings. This unpredictability creates respect. Consider how often people overshare to build connection. They reveal insecurities hoping for empathy. Sometimes it works, but it always comes at a cost. The listener now knows where you are fragile, even well-meaning people subconsciously adjust their behavior around perceived weakness. Control avoids this entirely. You do not need to lie. You do not need to fake confidence. You simply delay expression until it no longer influences your decision-making. The strongest position is emotional self-sufficiency. When you do not need validation, reassurance, or emotional discharge from others, you become difficult to control. People sense this immediately. They try fewer tactics. They test less. They assume resistance. This is why emotional minimalism is so effective. You speak less about how you feel and more about what you decide. Feelings pass. Decisions shape reality. Machiavellian strategy does not eliminate emotion. It decouples emotion from action. You can be angry and still choose silence. You can be hurt and still choose distance. You can desire something and still choose patience. That separation is mastery. Once people realize they cannot read you emotionally, they stop trying to play you emotionally. Interactions become cleaner, more respectful, and more cautious. And caution from others is always an advantage. This chapter establishes a hard truth: emotion expressed is emotion exploited. Control is not repression, it is discretion. The need to be understood is one of the most subtle weaknesses people carry. It disguises itself as honesty, clarity, or good communication. In reality, it is often a craving for validation. When you explain yourself excessively, you are not adding clarity, you are negotiating your position. Power does not negotiate its existence. Those who hold authority assume they will not be fully understood. They act anyway. Their actions define meaning after the fact. Explanations are optional, not required. The moment you feel compelled to clarify, justify, or defend your choices, you signal uncertainty. You invite evaluation. You give others permission to judge whether your reasoning is acceptable. This shifts the hierarchy. People at the top of any structure speak in outcomes, not rationales. They say what will happen, not why it must happen. Reasons come later, and only if they serve a strategic purpose. This is why over-explaining weakens influence. It exposes internal logic that others can dissect, challenge, or exploit. Once your reasoning is visible, it can be attacked. Once it is attacked, you are forced to defend. And once you defend, you are reacting. The desire to be understood often comes from fear of misinterpretation. But misinterpretation is not dangerous to those with stable authority. Only those dependent on approval fear being misunderstood. Controlled individuals accept that some people will never understand them, and they are comfortable with that. In fact, ambiguity can be useful. When others are unsure of your motives, they become cautious. They fill gaps with assumptions. And assumptions are rarely charitable. This leads them to act conservatively around you, minimizing risk. Clarity benefits those seeking reassurance. Ambiguity benefits those seeking leverage. This does not mean you become obscure or evasive. It means you reveal information selectively. You speak when it strengthens your position, not when silence would serve you better. Consider how often people explain themselves after being challenged. That's not what I meant, but let me clarify. You misunderstood me. Each of these phrases lowers status. They frame the other person as the evaluator and you as the applicant. High-status individuals do not correct every misunderstanding. They let their consistency speak. Over time, patterns outweigh explanations. The more you explain, the less people listen. The less you explain, the more weight each word carries. This principle applies everywhere in arguments. The one explaining is usually losing. In negotiations, the one justifying is usually conceding. In leadership, the one clarifying constantly is usually uncertain. Machiavellian control favors brevity, short statements, clear decisions, minimal emotional coloration. When pressed for explanation, controlled individuals offer the smallest amount necessary, or none at all. Silence in these moments is not avoidance. It is refusal to enter a frame where your legitimacy is questioned. People who are comfortable being misunderstood are rare. That rarity creates gravity. Others project strength, depth, or strategy onto the silence. And projection is powerful. Once you stop explaining, people stop interrogating. Once they stop interrogating, they start adapting. And adaptation means they are adjusting to you, not the other way around. This chapter's core rule is unforgiving. If you need to be understood, you are still seeking permission. Authority does not ask for comprehension. It creates outcomes that cannot be ignored. Most people believe dominance is loud. They associate power with confrontation, presence, and constant assertion. This belief keeps them trapped in visible struggle. True dominance is often quiet, and sometimes invisible. Withdrawal, when used intentionally, is one of the most destabilizing moves available. It removes engagement without explanation. It denies reaction without confrontation. And it forces the other side to confront uncertainty. People expect resistance. They prepare for arguments. They anticipate negotiation. They are not prepared for absence. When you withdraw, you break the feedback loop that keeps power games alive. No validation, no opposition, no emotional exchange, just silence and distance. This creates a vacuum, and vacuums demand to be filled. Those who relied on your attention feel the loss immediately. They begin to replay interactions, searching for what changed. They question their own behavior. They attempt re-entry. At this point, leverage has already shifted. Withdrawal works because attention is a currency. When you stop spending it, the perceived value of your presence increases. Scarcity amplifies importance. This is why silence after conflict is more effective than retaliation. Retaliation keeps both parties engaged on equal footing. Withdrawal removes you from the contest entirely, placing you above it. However, withdrawal is only dominant when it is controlled. Emotional withdrawal driven by resentment or fear is obvious and ineffective. Strategic withdrawal is calm, clean, and unexplained. No announcements, no ultimatums, no dramatic exits, just absence. The key is consistency. One moment of weakness, one explanatory message, one emotional outburst collapses the effect. Control requires discipline. People interpret unexplained withdrawal as strength because it implies self-sufficiency. It suggests you do not need resolution, apology, or validation. That independence is unsettling. They begin to adjust their behavior to regain access. This dynamic appears everywhere in negotiations. Walking away without countering increases perceived value. In relationships, reduced availability increases respect. In social hierarchies, absence creates intrigue. Machiavellian strategy views engagement as optional, not mandatory. You choose when to participate. You choose when to disappear. That choice alone establishes hierarchy. Withdrawal also protects you. It limits exposure. Fewer interactions mean fewer opportunities for emotional manipulation, conflict, or misinterpretation. This does not mean isolation. It means selective engagement. You are present where it matters and absent where it drains. Those who cannot withdraw are easily controlled. They need closure. They need the last word. They need acknowledgement. Each need is a lever. When you remove those needs, others lose tools. The most powerful signal withdrawal sends is this: I am not invested in winning this interaction. And paradoxically, that often makes you win it. Over time, people learn to approach you differently. They speak more carefully. They provoke less. They respect boundaries they once ignored. All without you enforcing anything verbally. This chapter's rule is cold but effective. The one who can leave without explanation holds the upper hand. Engagement is power only when it is chosen. Absence, when deliberate, is dominance. Every strategy discussed so far points to a single center of gravity: self-control. Without it, tactics collapse. With it, even silence becomes decisive. Most people attempt to control outcomes before they control themselves. This inversion guarantees failure. When your emotions dictate your actions, others can dictate your outcomes. Self-control is not willpower. Willpower is reactive. It burns quickly. Self-control is structural. It is the system you build that prevents impulse from ever reaching the surface. Those with true authority do not rely on restraint in the moment. They remove temptation in advance. They design their behavior so that emotional responses have nowhere to go. This is why disciplined individuals appear calm under pressure. They are not suppressing chaos, they have eliminated upstream. Every loss of control begins internally. A thought is accepted without inspection. An emotion is indulged instead of observed. An urge is obeyed instead of delayed. Once this chain starts, external control is already lost. Machiavellian strategy begins with internal hierarchy. Reason commands emotion. Emotion informs instinct. Instinct executes, but never leads. When this order is reversed, the person becomes predictable. Predictability is vulnerability. Self-controlled individuals are difficult to provoke. Not because they are numb, but because they do not reward provocation. They recognize that reacting gives the other party confirmation of influence. Influence acknowledged becomes influence strengthened. This is why insults lose power when they meet neutrality, why manipulation fails when it meets indifference, why pressure dissolves when it meets patience. Self-control starves external forces. Another misunderstood aspect of self-control is its visibility. You do not announce it. You do not display it. You let others discover it through failed attempts to move you. Each failed attempt teaches them a lesson. This person cannot be rushed. This person cannot be baited. This person does not break. Over time, these lessons accumulate into reputation, and reputation is a force multiplier. People pre-adjust their behavior before engaging with you. This is where authority becomes passive. You no longer need to assert boundaries. They are assumed. Self-control also grants long-range vision. When you are not consumed by immediate emotional relief, you can think in sequences instead of moments. You plan not for today's victory, but for tomorrow's position. Most people lose because they optimize for short-term comfort. They say what feels good now. They react to release tension. They choose expression over leverage. Controlled individuals tolerate discomfort. They endure silence. They allow misunderstanding. They accept temporary loss to secure long-term advantage. This tolerance is rare, and rarity commands respect. The final transformation occurs when self-control becomes identity rather than effort. At that point, restraint is no longer draining. It is natural. You no longer fight impulse. Impulse no longer rules. People sense this stability. They stop testing. They stop pushing. They stop assuming access. And that is the ultimate form of authority, not domination, but influence without effort. This chapter's final law is absolute. Whoever controls themselves cannot be controlled by others. Once you master this, everything else becomes optional.